Welcome to the Libertarian Counterpoint. I'm Richard Fields. On the program tonight we have Damian Schiff, Principal Attorney at Pacific Legal Foundation, and John Cameron, PLF Development Officer and author of Rewire and Rekill.
And soon to be Aristocracy as well by the end of
Aristocracy?
That's the third in the series. I couldn't think of another reword.
Right, okay. Moving on to the show. Gary Johnson is the presumptive nominee of the Libertarian Party. I say presumptive because nobody is the nominee until the delegates get together on Memorial Day weekend. I am one, to select among the top three, or actually half a dozen different candidates, who the Libertarian Party candidate for president will be. He has let slip in the last couple of days that his choice for the vice presidential slot is former Massachusetts Republican Governor William Weld. Now, in the LP, it's not the nominee's choice. He can't just say, "Here's the guy I want," and the convention ratifies. In the LP, the convention actually has two selection processes, one for president, one for vice president, and they run independent of each other and can do whatever they want regardless of what the presidential nominee prefers. But in any case, just that background, what do you think, John, will be the effect, assuming this goes through, of having William Weld on the Libertarian Party ticket, both in terms of keeping satisfying libertarians and in the general election chances?
Well, I'll talk about it backwards. Let's talk about general election first of all. I think people who are a little bit on the fence, that aren't kind of dyed in the wool, vote Libertarian no matter what, will be pleased by the choice, because he has some political experience, managerial experience, and he has a record that people can see. Typically, people behave in the future as they behaved in the past, so that's going to help.
As two-term governor, reelected with a 70% vote total the second time around in Massachusetts, which is, of course, is a very liberal state.
A very liberal state, which means he found a way to get things done and get along, which sometimes libertarians rail at because we should fight against the big brother, but sometimes you need to get things done. And also what this speaks to is that there are a lot of people in politics out there who are libertarians at heart and who have compromised their positions to get things done by assuming a different mantle, like the rhino thing. And I think this really speaks well of William Weld, saying that, yes, I ran as a Republican before because I couldn't just say, I'm a libertarian, elect me as governor of Massachusetts. He wouldn't have got the support. But now that the opportunity comes to kind of present, what his core values are, I would think that he's taken it. It could have a little negative effect on some hardcore libertarians, but I don't think so. Once they get to know the man, he seems to be a pretty good man.
Well, yeah, just what the objections, the libertarian objections to the guy are, he's a libertarian very broadly speaking, in the sense that he's fiscally conservative and socially liberal. He's pro-gay rights, pro-choice, and on the social issues, and he's conservative for the most part on the fiscal issues, which is fine as a state governor. The reason a lot of hardcore libertarians have their doubts is because he has not been particularly good on gun rights. He has not been particularly good on foreign policy. He's been known to say nice things about the George Bush Jr. Foreign policy in the Middle East, which a lot of libertarians take very strong issue with.
Very few officials, very few elected people in our country, not last name Paul, have held the high ground on this forever.
Well, this is true. This is true.
Yeah. So, I mean, the two Pauls, Rand and Ron, are some of the very few that have spoken out against.
Well, there's a few Democrats as well, but not that many.
But yeah, and they're on the way worse side on economic issues and Second Amendment and all the rest of that stuff. So I would say it's not really completely on point here, but what I'd like to talk about is how Gary Johnson is polling, or was polling, and I think this is previous to him having a real known name as a co-running mate or running mate.
Yeah, that's very relevant.
And polling at 10%. And this
and that was in a Fox poll where they in their reporting of the poll they said just for fun, let's
just
throw
for
in
something in giggles.
Yeah, for giggles, we'll throw in Gary Johnson's name, and he came in 10% in a three-way race between him and Trump and Hillary. And the interesting thing about the poll, other than the 10%, was that he was drawing more votes from Hillary than he was from Trump, and about 6% from each. And 20% of his, pulling about 20% of the independent vote.
Where is he pulling
of the independent vote, people who call themselves independents.
Yeah.
So he's got obviously a very strong base among independents, and a nearly equal but leaning to Democrat poll from the two established presumptive Democrat and Republican candidates.
So if let's throw out a general election where it is Gary Johnson and William Weld. I don't know of another potential candidate's name that's bandied about that's got a track record. Even though again there's some foreign policy stuff and the Second Amendment stuff that we're still a little worried about. But then typically the vice president doesn't get to decide a whole lot of policy stuff anyway, unless the president takes one between the eyes. So, somebody with some experience and the ability to get along. So what happens in a general election when everybody says, Republicans say, we don't like Trump, but we're going to get behind him because he was a Republican, and Democrats say, we don't like Hillary, but we're behind her because she's a Democrat, when they have a viable other choice. Will there finally be, and I think there might be, a whole bunch of people in the country saying, I vote against.
Well, yeah, I mean, there is a huge number of Bernie supporters who are virulently anti-Sanders. I mean, they don't like, anti-Hillary, anti-Clinton. I mean, they just don't like her at all, and for very good reason. Yeah. For all the reasons the conservatives don't like her, plus the fact that she started a war in Libya and was a party to the warmongering that the longest wartime president in the United States history, I'm talking about Barrack Obama, is privy to. So there are a lot of people who don't like Hillary. There's a lot of people, and she was Secretary of State during that period.
And huge trust issues, especially among young women. Any with Hillary, any voter who has integrity anywhere in their top three on their radar, she's their least favorite candidate.
Yeah, and the thing is, I mean, with Trump in the campaign, all of the dirty laundry from the 90s, all the way from Juanita Broaddrick to names who I can't, the dozens of people that he and Monica Lewinsky, all of that's going to be refreshed in the public memory. Trump is going to make a big deal out of all of that.
Because Trump isn't blame free. Trump isn't certainly somebody who hasn't had fun in life, but he fortunately does not care. So that kind of sets him apart.
Well, and Bill didn't care either, but Hillary, was the facilitator, which is
Hillary made it possible for him to screw around.
In a sense, even more reprehensible.
Yeah.
But the point is, huge negatives for Hillary, and on the other side of the picture, huge negatives for Trump. Nobody on the hard conservative side likes Trump because they don't know what he stands for, and the reason they don't know what he stands for is because he doesn't stand for anything other than building a wall. And and making America great again. Well, making America great again reminds me of another slogan we heard 8 years ago.
Need.
Hope and change.
Change we need.
Hope and change. Make America great again. Both empty phrases, mean nothing, sound good.
You can read into them whatever you want.
It's a Rorschach's test that people who are the trumpets are, reading into it, whatever their prejudice, whatever their thoughts are. That's what they think that Trump is going to accomplish for them.
Well, to be fair, I think it was.
Why are we starting being fair now?
Was it Reagan's first or second? was it 1980 or 1984 when he had that famous commercial about it's morning again in America? I think it was.
I think it was 1980.
Yeah. I mean, you know, that's just the nature of politics, that you have to have these good catchphrases. I will say.
Well, I like that one much better than any of the later ones.
Well, I do too. But I will say, you know that a mainline party politician's career is over when he's being considered for nomination to the Libertarian Party.
Well, Ron Paul ran as a presidential nominee for the Libertarian Party in 1988 and came back as a Republican congressman and served many terms after that.
Yes, that's true. But
now, speaking of Ron Paul, his name is being kicked around now as a draft movement for the Libertarian Party.
Really?
Which would be really amazing if that happened, but I doubt that he has any interest.
How old is Ron Paul now?
He's in his late 70s at this point.
You know, I saw him in the St. Louis airport last year. He and his wife were just having a cup of coffee.
Okay.
And nobody was paying attention to him.
Okay.
So there you go.
But, you know, that's... And then, of course, there's the convention, the LP convention. Who knows what will happen there? That's going to be.
Well, now, are you pledged for your vote?
I am announcing publicly that I'm a Gary Johnson guy, but
you're not bound.
I'm not bound by anything.
Why is that?
That's not the way they do it. They elect delegates.
It's very libertarian.
Yeah,
isn't
very
it?
libertarian. Yeah. We are elected by the state convention, and if you're elected, you're not elected as a supporter of anybody.
But you could change your vote. You don't have to go to Gary Johnson.
No, I can vote for.
So how many delegates are there from California?
100 something, I think. I'm not really sure.
I don't have.
And where will the convention be?
It's in Orlando, Florida.
Very nice.
Yeah. Okay. You know, we have been trash talking Barack Obama. We just did here in the last 5 minutes. But
I think we should call him by his middle name.
I think we need to call him the free speech stalwart of our times. Barack Obama speaking on the commencement address, and I quote verbatim, "Don't try to shut folks out. Don't try to shut them down, no matter how much you might disagree with them. There's been a trend around the country of trying to get colleges to disinvite speakers with a different point of view or disrupt a politician's rally. Don't do that. No matter how ridiculous or offensive you might find the things that come out of their mouths, because of my grandmother used to tell me, every time a fool speaks, they are just advertising their own ignorance. Let them talk. Let them talk. If you don't, you just make them the victim, and then they can avoid accountability. That doesn't mean you shouldn't challenge them. Have the confidence to challenge them, the confidence in the rightness of your position. There will be times when you shouldn't compromise your core values, your integrity, and you will have the responsibility to speak up in the face of injustice. But listen, engage. If the other side has a point, learn from them. If they're wrong, rebut them, teach them, meet them on the battlefield of ideas. You might as well start practicing now, because one thing I can guarantee you, you will have to deal with ignorance, hatred, racism, foolishness, trifling folks. I promise you, you will have to deal with all of that at every stage of your life. That may not seem fair, but life has never been completely fair. Nobody promised you a crystal stair. And if you want to make life fair, then you've got to start with the world as it is.
Huzzah!
That's great.
Huzzah! Now, I have found something that perturbs me in this
really?
speech.
What would that be? I agree with everything he said.
This speaks to the moral compass. The moral compass of the man making the speech. Now, I admire his willingness to support free speech. So the guy that revealed all the dirty dealings of the NSA and the rest, and is facing prison for it. That free speech, he should support that.
Oh, you're talking about Mr. Snowden?
Mr. Snowden.
Yeah.
So that was free speech. He should support that. Now, there is a phrase here. It says, "There will be times when you shouldn't compromise your core values, your integrity, and you'll have the responsibility." Now, he's saying there will be times when you shouldn't compromise, as if those times are rare. And that's why I'm reading this. And that most of the time, it's quite all right to compromise your core values and your integrity as long as you get what you want. That's what I read out of that. Is that there will be times when you shouldn't. There will be that occasional rare time.
Are you saying that he's
where
using a
you
little bit of,
need-
he's using the wheels of words here?
when you need to actually stick to your guns, the rest of the time you can lie, cheat, steal, and stab people in the back to get what you're doing. That kind of, there will be times when you shouldn't compromise. The occasional time. I think if you put the word occasional in there, it would really speak to his moral compass. But I admire the fact that Edward Snowden will soon not be facing any kind of charges at all because he supports free speech.
It's interesting though, because I wouldn't think libertarians would be particularly keen on free speech as the great value, as opposed to just simply property. Because, the reason why we should be upset that somebody's rally is being interrupted is presumably it's being interrupted by trespassers.
Are you talking? Well, okay, I mean, he's speaking to a couple of different things here. I think that are
Or colleges, say it's a private college.
Yeah, that are
They
present.
they don't want to hear certain speech. Let them exclude the speech.
Yeah. Okay. So you can say.
But he wouldn't say that. He's making an argument about. It's a very progressivist argument that that for some reason just having lots of speech generally is always a good thing. Mm-hmm. I don't necessarily think that's true.
Okay. I mean, certainly you can make the argument that if it's a private college and the private college doesn't
You're
want to.
You're a lawyer, aren't you?
Doesn't want to invite. I don't know. Adolf Hitler to come speak.
Yeah.
Then you've
Well,
got
Harvard. I mean, Harvard probably would know.
You have the perfect right to say no, we're not going to do that, or David Duke in a modern context.
Not only the right, but I would say
maybe the obligation.
It may very well be advisable.
Yeah.
Not
for any number of reasons,
Yeah,
security
sure.
reasons,
Right.
public order reasons,
Right.
Giving somebody who is totally disreputable a forum reasons,
Sure.
all kinds of reasons not to do it, which hinge on, as you put it, private property rights.
Yeah.
On the other hand, if a college across town or a venue across town says, well, we're going to invite that disreputable person, we don't have the right to say, no, you on your private property can't invite that person and can't give him a microphone in a forum.
Well,
That's the free
there's
speech
another thing going on here, and it's implied, I think, and that's a wonderful point, is that I wish he would have spoken to political correctness, which he won't, because most of the people who've been disinvited have been disinvited because they didn't
toe the line.
Yeah. On PC, and so if he just said drop political correctness in there, that would have been great.
Well, there's two things that he's referring to obliquely, and he doesn't name either of them. One is political correctness. The other is the whole Trump phenomena, the political incorrectness as done by politicians. So you've got political speech that he disapproves of, or that he might disapprove of, as well as I think it's called microaggression on campuses now, which is basically saying anything that makes people feel bad for whatever reason.
Yeah. I mean, I think your necktie is microaggressive.
I won't make any comment about yours.
Yours is blatantly aggressive.
But no,
Mine is patriotic.
I think he is getting at I should say he's not getting at the Trump phenomenon, because that's where we're seeing a lot of the rally interruptions.
Yeah.
Well, it's
Well,
amazing.
he is in a way. I mean, he's addressing it obliquely.
So if
He's saying let Trump stand up there and blather. He'll just make a fool of himself. My grandmother says, he'll just expose himself.
And on the other side, the liberals make a great show of being civilized to the caveman Republican mentality. We're the educated, we're the intelligent, and the only people that are vote Republican is they're farmers and former mine, and they don't know what they're doing, which is poor pitiful them. But you don't see you see those folks being okay with the Clinton crowd and the Sanders crowd, pretty much saying whatever lunacy they want and violently interrupting with protests. Whereas you see organized the dissent that we're seeing at Trump's speeches.
It's organized and outside.
It's
outsiders.
Organized and it's outside. It's not
The Bernie Sanders people are internal.
Yeah.
protesting.
So it's
Probably
real
rightfully so,
strange how that gets flip-flopped.
Yeah. Well, we have a lawyer in the room, so let's talk about a lawyer case. The Ninth Circuit, three-judge panel struck down essentially a zoning law, if I understand it, in Alameda, that restricted gun shop locations to no more than 500 feet from a school, home, liquor store, number of other establishments on Second Amendment grounds.
Any place where gravity exists, I think that was in there.
Yeah. Damien, is this a significant Second Amendment victory? Will it be appealed? What's the Ninth doing the right thing on a Second Amendment issue?
I know that is remarkable in and of itself. But then again, I could see how even liberal judges on a court of appeals could read recent Supreme Court decisions that have made it clear that
You mean liberals can read? Oh, okay. Yeah.
and follow the law because
So many of them have advanced degrees, they can at least get somebody to read for them.
Good, gotcha.
law clerks
Yeah.
and those recent cases, I'm thinking particularly of the Heller case out of
McDonald.
D.C. and McDonald out of Chicago, that have made it clear that the Second Amendment is like any other right that's been incorporated into the Due Process Clause among the Bill of Rights, and it is a fundamental right. Now,
Not a secondary right.
not a secondary right, but it is interesting, though, because I wonder if this means now that a government couldn't limit where, say, abortion clinics are located, because then that's going to impinge upon the privacy rights for abortion. I mean, it's the same logic here, but they're saying that your right to protect yourself doesn't mean anything unless you can have access to purchasing the guns to protect yourself.
Well, and I would argue in favor of freedom of, I would argue against no zoning personally. I mean, Houston is an example of a very large metropolitan area, a large city that has no zoning laws,
Yes,
and
you're right.
it works fine.
Yeah.
I don't. They have none. No zoning laws at all.
Wow, Houston's been booming forever.
And it works fine.
Hate to live
There is
there.
really no need for
The reason
zoning.
why it works fine is not that there are no rules, but that there are private covenants.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
which is fine. I have no problem
We
with
also
private
have that
covenants.
here with homeowners associations.
Yeah, you can do private covenants anywhere.
You know how difficult homeowners associations can be.
They can be a pain in the
Yes,
butt, but
I
you sign on the
do.
dotted line when you move into the
Well,
neighborhood.
not right, but I
Yeah,
mean,
you do.
contracts of adhesion. I mean, it's not like you have total freedom, so you have to live someplace. I mean,
Right, but you can live in the homeowner's neighborhood where you agree with the rules and regs.
yeah, but
You don't have to
It might be
move
the only game in town.
Well, okay. Sorry, making a devil's advocate argument here. Or?
He is a lawyer.
Yeah,
Remember
okay.
that.
No, but I think the bottom line is it's not particularly surprising. I mean, the judge who wrote the decision, Judge O'Scanlan, Reagan appointee, he's one of the more conservative judges on the Ninth Circuit. I'm not surprised that the Ninth Circuit came out that way. I would not be surprised either if the government asks for a rehearing before the entire Ninth Circuit.
And how would you predict that would go?
I think that would most likely go against the gun owners. And I'm not entirely certain whether the Supreme Court would take up the case, given the current Constitution, the current justices on the court.
Because it is, in fact, ultimately a zoning issue as opposed to a Second Amendment issue.
Not only that, but I mean, I think the gun rights cases from the Supreme Court have been 5-4, with Justice Scalia not on the court anymore.
Yeah, okay. And they probably would avoid taking it up at all until the Ninth is appointed.
I think that's true.
Yeah. Food riots in Venezuela. Are we seeing the ultimate result of the Bernie Sanders economic program already playing out in South America?
Short answer, yes. And so we can talk
Okay.
about something else. No,
Go ahead and
I'm
tell
being
me how that
facetious.
plays out. How did Venezuela, the richest oil country in the world, having more oil reserves than
It's not
Saudi
sweet
Arabia?
oil, though. It's not sweet oil.
Stinky oil.
How did they get to a place where people are dying in the hospitals for lack of medical care, people are rioting and stealing food in the streets because they're going hungry, where basically society has broken down almost entirely? How did they
it's
get
not-
from one of the richest countries in South America to a basket case?
Let's not paint the picture as bleak. The picture is getting bleak, but right now they're on the edge of food riots. What they have now is troops delivering foodstuffs because the system is broken down to the point where they have to. They deliver basically rations door to door because the central planners are worried that if they deliver food to groceries, then the black market, which we would normally call
The market.
forces operating anywhere else and operating efficiently, will have it. And how it broke down is central planning and the attempt to spread the wealth by any other means than to each according to his ability. To each according to his ability, breaks down everywhere. And the worst case scenario, which is really more totalitarian than socialism, is Mugabe in Zimbabwe, which had the best standard of living equal to South Africa on that continent. Once it was called socialist, but was really just a robber barons in office. Anytime people in government try to plan something, they do terribly because they don't understand the power of the market. The market does things much more efficiently because of the million minds involved giving input into decisions and making rational decisions that are based completely on self-interest than any other kind. And everywhere it's ever happened, this kind of breakdown has happened. It happens slowly, or it happened slowly in some of the states in Northern Europe, and they were resource rich and realized even with those resources that socialism long term doesn't work. And in this case, socialism relatively short term.
Well, I think what you had with Hugo Chavez was he was a true believer in socialism and also a true believer in his own power and keeping his own power. And so he was practicing the socialist dogma in its entirety. He was putting price controls on everything. He was saying on whether it was food or oil or investment or you name it, he was saying...
Worked well for Richard Nixon.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we complain about Watergate, but the real sin of Richard Nixon was taking us off the gold standard and price controls. That's what.
And he was supposedly a Republican.
Well, yeah, that's what I call a rhino Republican.
He did appoint Rehnquist to the court.
Which I would have arguments with as well.
Okay.
That's the show. I can't make those arguments. That's okay. We'll see you again next week. Same time, same place.
My question would be, could you make those
on the Libertarian Counterpoint on YouTube, on the internet at accesssacramento.org, and on a cable channel near you. It's channel 17 in Sacramento. Thank you very much for being part of the show. See you next week.